It is certainly a chaotic situation around the world, as you may know, but unsurprisingly, our country is more obsessed with pride flags, teaching disgusting things to children, and men wearing dresses. Why? Because we're a dying empire, and in many ways, we deserve everything that is happening to us. But we got to talk about both aspects tonight on the Vince Dao Show, so stay tuned. And we are live tonight from the great state of Florida. Welcome everyone to the Vince Dao Show. I am your host, Vince Dao. And before we begin, everyone be sure to leave a like right now on the stream and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Hope everyone had a great weekend. It's good to be back. As you guys know, I was in Dallas this weekend. And let me say, I hope you had a better past 24 hours than me, because I was supposed to fly home yesterday at about 4 p.m. from Dallas to Florida. So very standard flight as you'd expect, right? Hopefully none of you guys took a flight yesterday. The entire FAA, I swear, every flight was delayed due to weather issues or something like that. And so I ended up, I think it took me about 8 or 9 hours to get home. From Texas to Florida. It is ridiculous. I am exhausted. Hope you guys had a better weekend than that. But we are here, so let's get through the show tonight. We got a couple things to talk about. First and foremost, need to give you my reaction to the attempted coup by the Wagner group that you saw in Russia over the weekend. Also, Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenko. You know, I'm not personally like a supporter of the guy or anything, but it had a very interesting interview with the BBC where he actually brought up a lot of the themes we talk about on this show in regards to self-determination and the West trying and failing to impose their way of life on other countries. We got to react to that. Also, in this country, pride marchers over the weekend admitted openly that they are coming for your children. We'll give you our reaction to that. And also, Andrew Tate causes controversy by basically saying that depression is a choice in his own words. I will give you my reaction to that actual take later tonight on the show. So it's going to be a great show. Before we begin, everyone be sure to leave a like. And as usual, if you do want to super chat to support the show, it is all greatly appreciated. I will read them throughout the night. In fact, I will read some of our super chats right now. Dollar for $2 says, my LSU Tigers got embarrassed but are winning right now. You guys are stealing the game. Literally, stop the steal, okay? How is that out? All right, my school's in the College World Series with him. Literally, the guy didn't even catch the ball. The guy dropped the ball, foot was on the base, and they called him out. So, you know, as usual, LSU cheating, of course. We'll be back. We will be back, all right? But anyways, thank you for the 2. And Friendly Medic for $10 says, Prigozhin did a Teddy Feezer moment. I don't even know who that is, but thank you for the $10, Friendly Medic. I actually have absolutely no idea who that is. But anyways, thanks for the super chats. We'll read them throughout the night. Without further ado, let us get into the Hour of Dao. Let's get started into the show tonight. So, first and foremost, we react to the news, and I'm sure you are aware that over the weekend, there was an attempted coup in Russia. I'm not going to rehash the entire events. More so, I'm going to give you my take on it. And certainly, we learned a lot about the absolute psychotic tendencies of both liberals and the neocons, right? Just the entire globalist order over the weekend, because we straight up learned that, you know, as much as they want to call us irrational and they say, oh, Vince, you support an America First foreign policy. How dare you? That's evil. That's unhinged. We basically learned that these people want nuclear war. They want an unstable world order. They don't care how many both Ukrainians and Russians die in the process of anything. And we're going to talk about that. But first and foremost, if you have absolutely no idea what's going on, you were living under a rock this weekend. As you may know, the Wagner group, which is a very powerful and tough mercenary group in Russia, you know, they've been doing a lot of work, obviously, for the Russian government. They're helping fight this war for them. They actually turned away from Ukraine and started marching towards Moscow, trying to overthrow Putin. And luckily, I will say, for all the parties involved, the Wagner group stood down. And, you know, the thing, at least for now, is settled. I mean, we'll see what happens, but for now, it is settled. Now, what I will say about it is that this is absolutely the right outcome, okay? And I'll tell you why. Because I personally pray for a stable and orderly Russia, okay? And I know that's in contrast to most of the stuff you saw from liberals and including some Republicans over the weekend. We know that they want regime change in Russia. We know Putin is so bad. We need to overthrow Putin, all this stuff. But here's my thing about that, okay? Whatever you think of Putin, love him or hate him, I'm not even right now like interested in hashing out the debate of whether or not he's a good leader. More so, okay, my big thing with this is that the state of Russia and by proxy the world would have been far, far worse off had the Wagner group, a literal psychotic, brutal Eastern European mercenary group, taken over the Kremlin in comparison to Vladimir Putin, right? And again, think what you will of him, but he as a leader has managed to keep a very large and diverse and in many ways, in some regards, right, a once corrupt country here intact. And yet we had all the liberals and the neocons over this weekend just rooting for the Wagner group, rooting for the crazy, brutal mercenaries, the same people they said 2 seconds ago were committing all of the war crimes simply because they wanted to dunk on Vladimir Putin. Because apparently we never learned from the Iraq war or any of these past foreign conflicts, you know, what has happened here, right? So let me address this. First and foremost, why is it insane for the Wagner group to be in charge of Russia instead of Vladimir Putin? Okay, since people never want to pause and actually reflect on how insane that is, let's do it for them. Okay, so let me lay out the reasons why this coup was not a good thing, and you know, it is a good thing though that Russia is ending in a stable place. Okay, so first and foremost, however brutal and authoritarian that you think Vladimir Putin is, I can virtually guarantee you that Russia would have been off far, far worse in the hands of the Wagner group, okay? First and foremost, it would not be good for the Russian people because, again, you think Putin is this evil dictator. Yeah, see how Russia is, see how human rights, your beloved human rights actually are in Russia when a bunch of crazy Eastern European mercenaries take over the country, okay? So that's first and foremost. And furthermore, though, it would not be good for the world. Oh, I don't care about the Russian people. I know you don't. But it wouldn't be good for the world either, because not only would you be putting psychotic Eastern European mercenaries in charge of the civil order of Russia, you'd actually be putting them in charge of one of the world's largest nuclear arsenals. Has anyone thought of this? Has anyone thought this through? If you hand over the Russian government to the Wagner group, guess who now controls the nuclear weapons in Russia? Exactly. Okay? And then furthermore, so that in itself is not a good idea, but furthermore, in the event that the Wagner group inevitably loses control over the country, which I virtually guarantee you would happen and is going to happen, who do you think is going to take power next? Or actually, we don't know. Who would take power after that? Because we virtually guarantee that, you know, you're going to get this point of doing what the liberals want would plunge Russia into the state of civil war, likely several regime changes on top of each other, and you have no idea who you would be putting in charge of the nuclear arsenal and the military of the Russian state. It makes absolutely no sense, okay? And yet again, all the liberals were cheering this on. They were cheering on the destabilization of Russia. They were cheering on putting the Wagner group in charge of everything, okay? Why? Because, and this is pretty open, this is how psychotic they are, right? They want to see nuclear-armed Russia, again, a nation, I believe, actually with the largest nuclear arsenal on Earth. They wanted to see that all plunge into chaos. Because why? I don't know. Because like I said, these people are that psychotic and frankly, in many ways, I would argue genocidal. Okay? They are. Either they are brutally naive or they're just outright insane in this regard. I tend to lean towards more insane because these are the same people who demand that Ukrainians continue to die. Ukrainians and Russians, I should say, continue to die for inches of territory. So why wouldn't they be so insane to also demand that Russia be completely unstable, right? And these are the same people, by the way, who when you come along and say, you know, I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of this proxy war. I don't know if I really want to keep propping up chaos in Eastern Europe. These people come along and say, that's fringe, that's insane, that's radical, right? You hear this even from some in the Republican camp. The take of America First is actually a fringe and ridiculous opinion. And yet these are the same people at the same time promoting regime change in Russia. And it's not just Joe Biden, right? Lindsey Graham himself, if you guys remember, went out there openly at the start of this conflict and said that we need regime change in Russia. I virtually guarantee you he was rooting, right, as the Wagner Group marched towards Moscow. But these are the people who say our foreign policy is irrational. They say, you don't know what you're talking about, dude. You don't understand the nuances of foreign policy. Actually, despite the fact that Vladimir Putin is a relative moderate in his country, which most people don't talk about, and this is why I say whatever alternative ends up taking Russia, whether that's the Wagner Group or the political figures in Russia who are set up to succeed him, right? Actually, you'd have a far crazier person, quote unquote, than Putin. This is what they say. It's all just ridiculous, okay? So, like I said, to conclude and to recap, love him or hate him, Russia is better off currently stable with Vladimir Putin in power than the alternative. The alternative legitimately is brutal and crazy. And I will say this to all the Westerners who still think, no, I just don't like Vladimir Putin. Let me tell you this, okay? Whatever Russia does after Vladimir Putin, which who knows, I virtually guarantee you the one thing they will not do is embrace your idea of liberal Western democracy. You know why? Because they already tried that. They tried that at the end of the fall of the Soviet Union, okay? And Boris Yeltsin came along and did all the things that the modern Western liberals wish Russia would do. Okay, he said, we're going to open the nation up to free trade. We're going to open ourselves up to liberalism. Hey, Western corporations, everyone move into this country. And guess what happened to the country of Russia? As you may know, it was very unstable. It was chaotic. It was literally right about to balkanize. It was about to break up. The mafia ran like half the country. Warlords ran the country. There was no stability because Boris Yeltsin, the guy who came along campaigning on this idea of Western liberal democracy in Russia, was a failure. And guess who they elected after that and who has been in power for 20 plus years? You know the answer to this question, okay? So with that said, let's say that Vladimir Putin is deposed or whatever happens, liberals, neocons. Who do you think the Russian people are going to want after that? Do you think they're going to say, let's go back to Boris Yeltsin? Let's go back to the globalization that the West wants us to do? Or do they already kind of understand that they are a pariah and very likely would fall into something even crazier and more radical than the guy who came before them? Think about this logically. Use your head. And that's the problem with Russia-Ukraine foreign policy. Nobody actually uses their head. But let me just say, the central idea here, the central premise is stop trying to impose your principles on the rest of the world. Okay, it's not going to end well. All right, it's gonna end a lot worse than whatever you think you're doing. Okay, maybe Russia needs someone like Vladimir Putin, and maybe, as we're about to get into here in this next segment, Belarus needs someone like an Alexander Lukashenko. Right, in the same way Iraq needed someone like Saddam Hussein. Right, because not every country is the United States or the UK or any of these Western countries. And the reality is there are a lot of places around the world where strong-arm government is the only thing that works and, frankly, the only thing that the people there will accept. And, you can disagree with it. You don't have to like Putin. You don't have to like Lukashenko. You don't have to like any of these people. But before you demand that we overthrow them, perhaps ask yourself what the alternative is here. And I want to get in now to our next clip here. So, similarly, in reaction to the entire situation, Alexander Lukashenko, who is the dictator of Belarus, did an interview with the BBC and actually absolutely humiliated them in this interview. Now, disclaimer for YouTube, and disclaimer for the journalists, and just disclaimer for the sake of honesty, I'm not personally a fan of Lukashenko, right? He actually came along in the 90s saying he was going to restore the Soviet ideas, and he's sort of a leftist, sort of, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a Lukashenko head before people accuse me of doing that. But I will say that in this interview, he does highlight the contrast between the BBC guy and him, does highlight the very things I've often talked about here with the arrogance of the West and this idea that we can impose our way of life on the rest of the world and it's going to work. So check it out. Here's the reaction. We're going to play about 10 minutes of it. We'll see how long it goes. Of Lukashenko versus the BBC. Check this out.
Июля месяца, да, ликвидировано 270 НКО Беларуси.
Отвечаю на твой вопрос, не трудись.
By the way, so first and foremost, if you're just listening, you might have to look at the screen. There's subtitles. I don't have it dubbed. But the BBC asks him about the NGOs that he's been shutting down in his country, mainly Western ones, right? Western groups try to come into his country undermine his regime, and then he kicks them out, and they're like, why did you kick him out? And it's a very interesting, it shows you the difference in what certain parts of the world believe and take seriously. But here, let's take a listen.
Выражем всех мерзавцев, которых вы финансировали. Ах, вы озаботились, что мы уничтожили ваши структурки, НКО, НПО и прочее, которые вы финансировали. Мы людей, которые работали на Беларусь, которые помогали людям, пальцем не тронули, а те, которые пользовались вашей помощью, получая от вас финансирование и громили здесь ваших, которых вы видели здесь в Минске, мы, если мы кого-то не ликвидировали, то мы их ликвидируем в ближайшее. И меня избирает белорусский народ. Поэтому мне важно, как меня воспринимают мой народ.
А вот этот вопрос легитимности, он для вас важен?
Абсолютно. Он мне не важен абсолютно, как вы будете там.
I mean, look, like I said, I don't even really, I'm not like, oh, I love Lukashenko or anything, but he's going off, and he's just saying straight up, it's a good exchange because it shows you. I like the way he's handling it. I will say that, because he's just straight up saying to the BBC and to the West, I don't care what you think of me. I don't care for your nonsense. I don't care for your idea of credibility, your principles. Like, this is my country. I'm going to run my country the way I'm going to run my country. And it is interesting. So take a listen here.
Легитимным
So keep listening.
считать или нелегитимным? Вы лучше разберитесь.
And so you'd be better off working out what to think of Joe Biden, legitimate or not. See, I agree with that. I do agree with that, you know?
Как вы будете с Байденом общаться? Он для вас легитимен или нет? С моей точки зрения, нелегитимен. Вы видели, что происходило на выборах. Наплевать на то, что обо мне сегодня думают в Англии или в Соединенных Штатах Америки или Евросоюзе. Потому что весь мир увидел ваше лицо. Ваше лицо, и вы его видели на этой границе. Поэтому я особо не парюсь, как вы там ко мне относитесь. Найдем мы для себя партнеров и союзников без Великобритании. Мы и не очень-то с вами и сотрудничали до этого. Ну, не хотите, ну и не надо.
I can't say in this interview he's actually said anything wrong. It's all true, you know?
Будем жить, и будем жить с каждым днем все лучше, потому что у нас есть страны, с которыми мы сотрудничаем, огромные страны. И то, что нам надо продать, мы в Евросоюз мало чего продавали, мы продадим, несмотря на ваши санкции. Я, конечно, не идиот и понимаю, что эти санкции не мне, точно не вам, и тем более не мне не нужны. Но если вы начали разговаривать со мной санкционным языком и не признавать мою легитимность, ну, Господь с вами. Я еще раз говорю, четверть века я уже к этому привык. Поэтому
Беларуси...
You know, it really does, and someone in this chat brought it up, and it's true. This whole exchange really does just highlight the arrogance of the West and this idea that, hey, well, Lukashenko, if you rule your country with an iron fist, don't you know the United States and Britain are not going to like you? And this guy, he's just like, I don't care. Screw you guys. It's like, you know what I mean? It is entertaining to watch. Like I said, I'm not even a Lukashenko head, but in this interview, him just telling the West what it needs to hear, which is that, yeah, he doesn't care about what we think, nor should he, nor should we be in his country trying to tell them what to do, you know, because much like, you know, it really reminds me, much like Iraq, much like the Middle East, we're trying to do the same thing here in Eastern Europe. We look at these countries and say, you don't have our idea of democracy, and that's wrong, so you're evil and need to be overthrown. And then what happens inevitably when a strong-armed leader is deposed, all the little ethnic groups, and this will happen in Russia if, you know, God forbid something goes down, likely in Belarus as well, all your little ethnic groups, all your different mafias, warlords, they're going to turn on each other, and you have Iraq 2.0, where there's terrorists, it's a broken country, all of that stuff. And has anyone in the West maybe considered, hey, that's why Russia has a strong-armed leader. Hey, that's why Belarus has a strong-armed leader. You don't have to like it, sanction it all you want. But, you know, the idea that that country and by proxy the world would be better with democracy and like legitimate democracy, quote unquote, which, I have things to say about that in the West. So I don't know if we're really in the position to say that. still, that's what this interview highlights is the rest of first of all, they don't care. He doesn't care. And, secondly, I don't know if Belarus as a country would be more stable without this guy. I really can't say that. How can you realistically actually say that? It's true.
Подожди, не перебивай меня. Вы находитесь в Беларуси. Я не против, какие вопросы задаете. Я провожу параллели, чтобы вы поняли,
Don't
что
interrupt
мне
me,
глубоко
Chad move.
получали там и избитые в милицию. Вы только бойцов из Окрестина не показывали, что они были избиты. А что бы было, если бы у вас или в Америке, тем более, бросились на милиционера, начали ему ломать ноги? Он бы получил пулю в лоб сразу, но мы ни в кого не стреляли пулю в лоб.
Владимир Путин, да, вы вместе
А
работаете...
почему вы у него не спросите? Вы в Москве живете?
Я у него спрошу про вас.
Про вас? Ну, спросите сначала про меня.
This guy, bro.
Вы давно работаете вместе, да, и мне интересно...
What do you think of Vladimir Putin? You go to Moscow and ask him. All right, I will say, we need more politicians in America who talk to Western media like this, okay? This is what we need. Yeah, this guy, like I said, I'm not even actually super familiar with him as a leader, which is why I'm not gonna. But this interview, he's telling the West exactly what it needs to hear. Absolutely right.
Что вы научились у него?
He don't mess around. That's he don't mess around.
Когда спросите у него, что он у меня научился, вам понятно станет, чему научился я у него. Точка.
Ну, вы вместе сейчас создаете новый интеграционный...
Создаем. Вы с Америкой, я с Россией.
Вот. И
вы с Америкой, Англия, с Америкой, Великобритания, а я с Россией. В чем проблема?
Союзного государства нет с Америкой.
Будет. У вас больше, чем союзное государство. Вам американцы...
Мне больше...
Почему
Sorry, it's caught up. I got this off Twitter, but...
в 2014, по-моему, году, когда ваши подопечные в Украине разбомбили Донбасс, вы меня не обвиняли в том, что я принял в течение нескольких месяцев 160 тысяч беженцев из Украины. Знаете, вы все время говорите, Стив, некоторые. И следуя вашей концепции, BBC, как вы это подаете,
I mean, that is true. The journalists always, they will just come up with their opinion. They will say, I believe this and you're wrong. But you notice that in every single interview, they always say, so, people are saying, right? People are saying that you are a misogynist or racist. Or people are saying, no, I'm not saying it. People are saying it. Like, no, you're the one saying it.
Ну, это везде у вас некоторые и кто-то. А кто-то один сказал, что резали проволоку.
Вы мне не верите?
Не, абсолютно нет. Я верю в факты. Так вы мне скажите, где резали, кто резал, и назовите имя этого солдата. А вот так говорит, что некоторые вам сказали, кто-то там позвонил, кто-то в деревне сказал. Ну, слушай, это не солидный разговор. Дайте мне текст, где я, покажите мне, где я сказал, приходите к нам. Позвали, это значит, Стив, приходи ко мне в Беларусь. Вот ты попросился интервью, я говорю, приходи. Меня это, слушайте, а мне наплевать на то, что в Евросоюзе вы...
Listen, I couldn't give a damn about what you think of the president of Belarus and the EU. I mean, that's the thing. We shouldn't care about him either, though, right? That's that he's bringing up a legitimate point. Why do we care so much what Belarus does? Why? Like I said, I don't think he's the best leader ever. But why do I care? And like I said, if he's there keeping Belarus stable, which, it was only 20, 30 years ago where there was a lot of bloodshed in Eastern Europe for a certain reason that people may know about, right? Certain Balkanization that occurred. Remember that? And still we want to go, really that was the first Middle East when you think about it. Before the Middle East was the thing, that was the thing. And we want to go in there and try to assert our ways on them. Why? I don't care. And then what's inevitably gonna happen is that if it did descend into chaos, guess who would be stuck with a bunch of refugees from Belarus? That's what they always do. Destabilize a place and then take in the refugees and then make ordinary people deal with the consequences of it. So it's nonsense. It's ridiculous.
Думаете о президенте Беларуси. Меня избирал не Евросоюз. Вы меня не признаете четверть века. Вы просто, Стив, не в курсе дела, наверное. Четверть века меня не признают в Евросоюзе.
So what? So, hey, I will say, okay, his attitude in this interview, that's what we need as a country. I'm not saying we need his policies. I'm not saying we need his, allegiance to a certain old country that I don't like legitimately. But this attitude towards the BBC, towards the media, towards the powers that be in the West, I'm entertained. And you watch this interview, I mean, between him and the BBC, don't take this out of context, but to an extent in this interview, you kind of have to root for him, don't you? You know, it's true.
Вы говорите,
He's going off. He's speaking facts. He is,
Стив,
right?
25 лет толпами ходят по Минску после выборов ваши сторонники в Беларуси. Это было постоянно. Только в этом году, вы слушать не умеете, только в этом году это было более подготовлено с вашей стороны, вами, фондами, немецкими.
Dollar for Dollar says Belarus has a 99% employment rate because it's illegal to be unemployed. Well, there you go. There you go, guys. He fixed unemployment. That's a joke. That's okay. For the older people watching this and are like, hey, no, it's a joke. It's a joke, okay? Lukashenko. Hey, no one is unemployed.
Английскими, американскими фондами деньги вбросили, людей здесь на фоне пандемии подготовили, и этот процесс занял чуть больше.
Это не ответ на мой
вопрос.
Больший
послушай меня, чуть больший промежуток. Поэтому не толпы ходили здесь, а максимум, когда собрали со всей страны, услышь меня, со всей страны, ты из Москвы должен был это видеть, со всей страны собрали, на пике было 46 тысяч, там 700 или 600 человек. Здесь, в Минске.
Я находился здесь.
80 тысяч, если не будешь слушать, разговор закончится. Если ты этого хочешь. Вот с этими, это не оппозиция, это предатели. С ними мы никакого диалога и никаких переговоров вести не будем.
Ну, вы понимаете, почему Евросоюзу?
The EU finds it difficult to talk to him because he's very straight up about his intentions. I think really, if you want to break it down, that's the difference between him and the West, right? It's not necessarily that, Europe is that much freer than Belarus. I mean, hold on, wait, what happened? Okay, no, we're good. Is especially the EU, Germany, for instance, you know how the speech laws are there. People, they're throwing Muslim parents in jail for disagreeing with transgenderism there and taking them for their kids, right? I don't think it's an issue of, that's a dictatorship and we're free here, because I don't think they're exactly very free in Europe, and I don't think we're very free here, but Europe's definitely worse than us. I think the difference is he's very straight up about him being a tyrant, right? Like, he's just straight up about it. He's like, you know what? Yeah, I don't care what you think. I don't care what you do. BBC, get out of my country. Go F yourself, right? In the West, we give ourselves this delusion of, well, yeah, we're censoring your speech and you're not allowed to disagree with, the pride agenda. But, we're doing it in the name of freedom. We're protecting democracy. We're censoring hate speech. See, it's a difference, right? It's a difference. And I think that's the reason why the EU and him don't understand each other, right? It's really it's not that the EU are not tyrants and he is. It's that they're both tyrants, but he's the type of tyrant who's like, yeah, I'm a tyrant. Yeah, I'm not going to lie to my people. I'm a tyrant. Yeah, I don't care about legitimacy. Here I am. Whereas the EU pretends to be the opposite, right? That's the difference. That really is the West in general these days, right? It's not that it's not tyrannical here. It's just that we pretend that it's not. We tell ourselves we have these things.
Трудно с вами общаться.
Вам со мной сложно, потому что я не танцую под вашу музыку. Я провожу независимую политику, и от вас, и от кого угодно, от американцев, от англичан, от Евросоюза, я вижу свой народ. Но вы что, скажете, что я своих соседей там...
So there it is. You guys basically get the point. But, there was the interview with Lukashenko. Eddie says, I would offer as a mild suggestion to the host of this chat, you might not want to giggle uncomfortably as a third grader. It's a serious subject matter. Well, what do you want me to do? The interview is funny. It legitimately is funny. You have this, Eastern European dictator in a mustache who's just like, I don't care what you think. Yeah, I'm a dictator. What are you going to do about it? Like it is amusing. What can I say? It is actually quite funny. But anyways, that's enough on the Russia front. We spent about like half an hour talking about global affairs. Let's get now into our own country. Okay, so some domestic news here. Over this weekend, here is video of Pride marchers chanting very openly and transparently, "We're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children." Okay, take a look. Okay, so I'm not gonna play anymore, but you guys got that? We're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children. It was an open admission. So, you wonder why conservatives are so obsessed with this protecting children thing. I know no one's coming for your kids. I see this so often from liberal TikTokers, like, no one's coming for your kids. Well, here they are. It's largely in many ways because they're doing it. They're openly saying that they're doing it, right? And ultimately, let's be real. Ultimately, if you support this movement, if you support the Pride's agenda, quote unquote, if you support that ideology, all of it, this is ultimately what you are supporting as well, okay? Because this has always been the logical consequence, the end of the slippery slope. And now they're just saying it outright. They're saying it very openly. Yes, we are coming for your children. Yes, that is exactly the point. Much like the previous segment, they reach a point where they stop hiding their intentions. And here we are, right? Here we are. And I'll tell you why the slippery slope was ultimately always meant to lead to this, because I know a lot of people don't really understand it, which is why they're confused. They say, well, 10 years ago, you guys just wanted to get married, and then now why are you pushing it on your kids? You guys promised once you're allowed to be married, you're going to leave it alone. Nobody's going to shove it in your face. And then here you have them very openly shoving it in your face, right? That's what you guys need to understand. And that's part of why I say this was always going to be the logical consequence of the slippery slope. Because really, let's break it down this way. The moment that we put this stuff, all of that, on the same level, I'm not even saying necessarily like it matters in terms of how you treat people or whatever it is, but if we're going to morally say as a society that all of that stuff is on the same level as normal straight marriage for the purpose of children, sex for the purpose of procreation, all of that stuff. If we say, well, there's no difference, it doesn't matter, one or the other, either or, it is what it is, then in many ways this was bound to happen, right? Think about that logically for a second. Ask yourself from their perspective, because this is part of where we fail as conservatives. We don't say there's a distinction. Right? We say, well, listen, it's all okay, but don't push it on our kids, right? That's what we say. It's all the same, right? What you guys do is no different from what straight people do on a moral level, any of that stuff. By the way, I'm not even saying necessarily, again, I'm not making a statement on how to treat them, how to respond to it. All I'm just saying is recognize this, right? When you put the two on the same level, when you say that marriage is not between a man and a woman, it's whatever you want it to be. So, a gay marriage, that's just as, valid and normal as a straight marriage. Then ask yourself that question logically. Then why, from their perspective, using your logic, why is it wrong to push it onto kids? We know why. I know why it's wrong to push it onto kids, right? But I'm also brave enough to say actively, yes, I do want my kid to be straight. I do, right? Because that is the default setting, as they say, whatever you want to say, right? Because I want grandkids. I want, my kids to have a future family as well. And so naturally, I want my kid likewise to be heterosexual, right? Like I actively want for that. And because again, the purpose of sex and relationship ultimately is the creation of family, the creation of children. Those people, they can't do that. Right? And so that's why there's actually difference between the two. Okay? Again, I'm not making a statement, YouTube, on how to treat one or the other. I'm just saying that's the way, I view it genuinely, right? But that's why I can go out there and say, That's why you shouldn't be pushing it on kids, right? Because it is like, that is not normal, right? You should not push it on kids because it's not normal. And because, you know, what they'll often say in reverse is they say, well, how come it's okay for, a prince to kiss a princess in a Disney movie, but it's not okay for us to do our thing in a Disney movie, okay? Again, my answer to that, I have a very solid answer to that. My answer to that is, again, because we should be promoting and wanting for our kids to have more kids, right? When they grow up. So that's why there's a difference. That's why it's wrong to push that stuff on children. But, legitimately, if you take the reverse of that, if you say that, it's okay, just don't push it on the kids, then they naturally are going to say, okay, well, then why can't we push it on the kids? Because if it's normal, if there's quote unquote absolutely nothing wrong with it, right? You see what I'm saying? There's nothing about it that is not normal, that is not anything. Then why are you surprised when pride marchers come along and say, okay, well, we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children? That's part of the problem. It was always bound to happen in many ways, right? That's why there's an argument to be made. There's a certain slippery slope that has to be pushed back up, right? And we're here in this current moment. We've lost certain fights in the past in this regard. I get it. But we are here in this moment, need to be brave enough to stand there and say, no, you will not push it on our children. And the reason why you will not push it on our children, we have to be willing to articulate it, right? The reason why you are not going to push it onto our children is because, let's just say, like, can we say this? We want our kids to be straight. We do. We don't want our kids to be the other thing. Because if they're the other thing, again, think what you will, right? You can have an opinion on how to treat them or whatever, but fundamentally, you want grandkids. You want your kids to procreate in the natural, normal human way of existence, and that's only possible one way. So that's the response. But yeah, I mean, there they are saying it quite openly. We're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children. If that won't wake certain people up, then I don't know what will. Do they have to be at the door literally banging, saying, hey, you won't let your 3-year-old son wear a dress, you're under arrest, which does happen in some places? I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to see. But anyways, let me pause really quickly. I think we got a super chat here. JD for $2 says, destabilization of the U.S. is due to multiculturalism. I mean, I think there's a number of factors, but that certainly is a reason why, right? It is a reason why. I don't know if I would even say it's the main reason, because I think really it's more so our political divide. Not to say that our cultural divide doesn't destabilize, but especially with this idea of multiculturalism. I think in America, honestly, though, the biggest dividing factor within us is sort of a domestic thing. But it is true, right? And that's part of why the left pushes this idea of multiculturalism. They don't want us to have one American culture. They don't want us to share anything in common, because if we did, we'd actually be a stable functioning country. So I definitely think it contributes. And by the way, guys, if you do want to support the show tonight, feel free to send it in via the super chats. They are all greatly appreciated. But let's take a look here. Some things are right, some things are wrong. Exactly. But, some people don't want to, they're scared to say that. That's really what it is. They're scared to say that. So let's take a look here. I'm just trying to read some of the chat for a few minutes before we go on here to our final story on the multiculturalism comment. 100% agreed. Well, it is. Scrappy says, what's your opinion on Alternative for Germany becoming the second most popular political party? I don't know much about them. I mean, I'd have to imagine quite a bit is better than Angela Merkel, but I don't know. I don't know much about them. So let me know. That was back when we had the melting pot, not like a salad when different things are all mixed together. Well, I will say I don't even really necessarily like the idea of a melting pot, because, by the way, that very concept itself came up with by liberals. But even a soup is not as coherent as ideally. I mean, I think it should be. I've heard this analogy made before. I think it should be like a steak. We're that united. We're that knit together, right? Because even a melting pot, you can very easily separate different elements. The broth, that's together. But you can just pick this out, pick that out. You want to be like a steak. That's probably the best melting pot analogy I would make. Is not even so much, the idea of the soup, which like I said, by the way, that in itself came up with by liberals. But you are right. It's gotten worse than the melting pot now. Now, is it even a salad anymore? It's really like someone just vomited all over the place, okay? So they were drunk. This is the country now. They were drunk. They vomited all over the house, okay? They didn't even do it in one toilet, or it's just all over the place. And that's America, right? That's the American culture. But yeah. All right, let's take a look here. Supreme Admiral Alexander Kolchak for $2 says, Vince, do you think we should separate from TERFs? Let me look into that. What exactly is TERFs? Oh, is an acronym for a trans exclusionary radical feminist. Okay. So it's basically a feminist that does not believe in transgenderism. Thank you for the 2. I mean, I don't consider myself a feminist in any regard. So, you know, if there is a feminist out there who is against that stuff, then good for her, obviously. But, you know, my opinion in general on feminism is that the whole idea of it is broken, right? Because the idea that men and women are fundamentally on the inside the same, and we have fundamentally the same purpose and role on this earth, which is basically the basic premise, the underlying foundation of feminism, that's completely backwards, right? That's completely wrong. We're different beings from each other. And I think that any attempt to not separate the two is quite dangerous. So let me see. It says we got a $5. Okay. All right, hold on. I think for some reason some of these super chats are not showing up in the live chat, but they are on Streamlabs. So here you go. All right, let's check for our super chats, guys. By the way, if you want to send them in, I'm reading them right now before we go on to the final segment here. But let's take a look.
Real Texan Politics donated $5 through Super Chat. It's a joke, you conservative snowflakes. We're not actually coming for your children, says the people coming for your children.
Thank you for the $5, Real Texan Politics. I'm not sure why it didn't show up in the live chat, but I'll check Streamlabs if you guys do send something in case. I don't know why it's doing that. They're hiding the super chats. The heck's going on, guys? Like I was scrolling, I was like, I was like, where's all the super chats? I see them now here, and they're hiding them. What's going on? What's going on, chat? But thank you for the $5, Real Texan Politics. I appreciate it very much. All right, let's check in on our other one here. Oh wait, no, we just got that one. What's this
Real
one? Real
Texan Politics donated $5 through Super Chat. It's a joke, you snowflakes. We're not actually coming for your children, says the people coming for your children.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Joanne. Did it send
Real
twice?
Real Texan Politics donated $5 through Super Chat.
I think it sent twice is what happened. I see 2 of them here, and they're like the same one. I'm very confused. I don't know what's going on, guys. YouTube is doing a little bit of glitching here. All right, but thank you for the real $5, Real Texan Politics. I'm not even sure if that actually went through. I don't know what's happening right now, but I appreciate it very much. Sandra Meyer says, I sent you a Cash App, but I was just saying hi, hope you're well. Well, I appreciate it. I hope you're well too as well, Sandra Meyer. Appreciate it very much. Dollar for $2 says, can we watch the full Why Are You Gay interview? We will at some point. I told you the next members chat, the next members block, we're gonna do it. Thank you for the $5, Sandra Meyer. We pretend to super chat and then you pretend to read them. Yeah, real. It's all fake. It's all fake. I'm actually funded by the Russian government and Lukashenko, right? All right, anyways, let's get on here to our final story of the night, and then we'll do the Q&A portion. I don't know why now the donors are just bugging out. It just keeps going. Real Texan Politics, I think you're going to be on screen all night. You're just going to be here popping up constantly. But anyways, here we go on to the last story of the... Okay. Let's just hide this. I don't know what's going on. She's just cycling through all the super chats now. Okay. We're gonna get one from like 3 weeks ago that's just popping up. All right, moving on here to the final story of the night. Let's talk a little bit about men's mental health, okay? Because we got to. I want to weigh in on this controversy. So, Andrew Tate is currently under fire today for tweeting this out. He went out and said that depression is a choice you choose. Now, on the surface, that may seem like a little bit of a crazy take. You know, I get it. But let's hear out what he means by that, okay? Let's take a listen.
I believe that feeling depressed is real. I don't believe depression as a clinical disease is real, no.
Really?
Correct.
You don't believe people can be clinically depressed?
I think PTSD is very real. Unfortunately, I have some friends who suffer from that. I know that feeling depressed is real. I believe that the number one power you have against these things are trying to take control of your own mind and affecting your own life. I believe that it's not healthy to hand over all your power and believe that depression is an outside disease that you can't affect. I know that when I've had difficult periods in my life, and also many of my friends, like I've said, suffer from PTSD and been through terrible things. I've lived a very difficult life, and I know people who have, that the things that made them feel better is when they woke up and said, you know what, I'm not going to allow this to damage me anymore. I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to get up and I'm going to fight this as hard as I can.
And by the way, on that, I agree.
So we agree.
Right? My favorite speech is the Rocky Balboa one.
Okay, so then we agree. No, we do.
Here's where we don't agree.
Piers.
You don't. No, hang on.
I believe that feeling depressed is real. I don't.
Okay, so there's the clip. Okay, and that's kind of been a take of his that he's been under fire for a lot. You say depression isn't real. You say this. Let me say, okay, hot take to anyone suffering with depression, you know, I pray for you. But Andrew Tate is right. He's absolutely right. The best way to get out of clinical depression, which, by the way, I think most depression people have is not clinical. I would call it situational depression, okay? The best way to get out of it is by fixing your life and getting rid of the factors in your life that are making you depressed. Common sense, okay? But I know naturally what a lot of people are going to come to me saying, no, Vince, you don't get it. It's a hormonal imbalance. You don't choose to be sad. You have a hormonal imbalance in your brain. To that, I say, I fully understand that. And I say, you are right. You likely do have a hormonal imbalance in your brain. The difference is, what I am saying is, you are right, but what causes that hormonal imbalance? Is it something that very randomly spawned in your brain, you know, just developed like cancer? All of a sudden you're walking around one day and your brain screwed up its hormones, and then all of a sudden you started feeling depressed all the time? Or is that actually something you can control because your hormonal imbalance is a byproduct of certain circumstances in your life, right? I think for the vast majority of people with depression, it's, again, situational. Sure, it is true, in my opinion, and I might add a little bit more nuance than him in the sense that I think for a very small sliver of the population who have genuine personality disorders, right? Dissociative personality disorder, borderline, all that stuff, where they're genuinely born where their brain is kind of screwed up in that regard, then maybe in that sense it's biological. But for the vast majority of people, most of the time, the hormonal imbalance that causes depression is situational, okay? If you are living your life as most depressed people do, eating garbage food all the time, you don't get sunlight because you don't go outside, so you don't get the natural endorphins and nutrients from that, you don't get exercise, and furthermore, that's the physical level, right? On an existential level, many of you don't have meaning in life. There's nothing you're really living for. You don't work very hard. You don't believe in God, right? So you are physically and existentially, metaphysically unwell. And yet you tell me that you think the only thing that can fix your clinical depression is SSRIs. You need to take these very dangerous antidepressant drugs because my hormones are imbalanced and I can't control it. I'm sorry, but I think it's nonsense. I really do. I genuinely believe for the vast majority of depressed people, I'm not putting them down. I'm not attacking them. What I'm trying to tell them, unlike the doctors who sit there and say, you're helpless, you're ruined, you need to just succumb to our big pharma drugs, and trust me, we have your best interests at heart. I am saying you need to get up from the situation that is making you depressed, right? Yes, you have a hormonal imbalance. But your hormones, right, are a product of the things that you do. When you work out, hormones are released. When you get sunlight, hormones are released. Whereas on the flip side, when you sit outside and watch porn and just live in squalor all day, you have different hormones being released in your brain that are going to make you feel depressed versus making you feel, you know, happy or at least content with life, right? That is the biggest thing. That is the biggest thing, in my opinion, that causes so much depression. And you know how I virtually know that is true? Because why is there virtually no depression or suicide in the third world, right? You know why? Is because people who actually live way harder lives than us, they legitimately don't have the time to be depressed or feel depressed. Their lives are too active, right? They're very active lives. They live stressful lives. They live very eventful lives all the time. And newsflash, as difficult as those lives are, very few men in the third world are depressed and killing themselves in comparison to the first world, where we have no purpose, we have no meaning. In many ways, life is too easy, to the degree where, you know, we as men, we're warriors. We're supposed to fight. We're supposed to have a purpose. We're supposed to have a drive, a mission. Life as a man is not supposed to be easy. In many ways, you could argue we make our life easy and then wonder why so many people are depressed, right? It's a big thing in the modern world. Our lives are so easy that we don't have a purpose. We don't have a struggle. We don't have a war to fight, right? So this is all to say, you know, I think in many ways, the moment a lot of depressed people in our generation realize that Andrew Tate's take on this is 100% correct, and you're actually, arguably, in my opinion, being scammed by a lot of pharmaceutical interests that don't have your interests at heart, right? I think there's a reason why let's just be honest, there's probably a reason they're coming along and saying this feeling of sadness that you have, that through all of human history people have understood is a product of your situation. And if you get some meaning in your life, you get in the gym, you know, you stop being an atheist, you find some purpose in your life, you can lift yourself up from the situation. Maybe there's a reason why the pharmaceutical companies came along and said, no, actually, there's this thing called clinical depression, which maybe that's true for the small minority of people with dissociative personality disorder, where their actual brain is screwed up. But it's not situational. You just caught it from the sky, and the only way you can fix it is if you take our big pharma drugs. It's nonsense. And it's also very dangerous because those SSRIs, they don't work. For very often, they make people worse off. And even to the degree to which they hypothetically do work, they are merely a distraction from the true problem in someone's life, right? That's all it is. And by the way, this is an argument that Tate has brought up before, and I also agree with. You know, depression, I think, in many ways is a biological trigger. You are sad because your life sucks, right? Because you're losing the game of life. And you know, that's you being sad is actually your body telling you, I need to get out from this situation. I need to fix my life. I need to do something. There's no wonder I'm depressed, right? But what do we tell people? Instead of saying, you're depressed? All right, sorry to hear that. Fix your life. Get your act together, which I think a lot of men need to hear. Instead, we say, no. Take these drugs. Take these drugs. And then I'm told, and Andrew Tate is told, and so many others are told, that if we don't subscribe to the idea that you need to inject yourself with narcotics in order to stop feeling sad, as compared to actually stopping the things in your life that are making you sad, you don't care about men's mental health. Which actually is the opposite. We're the ones who actually do care. You're the ones trying to scam people on behalf of the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, that's what I'll say about it. Sandra Meyer says, Vince, you just hit the nail on the head. When I came back to my faith and overcame my anxiety, depression, and addiction to seriously heavy drugs. Well, Sandra Meyer, glad to hear that. Appreciate that. And it's true, right? And I think in many ways, whereas men have this thing with depression, I think women say they have anxiety a lot. I think very often with them, it's a similar thing, right? It's for some people it's real, but it's probably because their life is screwed up. And then much like depression, it's very overblown, right? Some women just get naturally nervous and worried because, like, I don't know, stuff happens, right? You naturally are like, oh, well, I'm worried about that. And they say they have anxiety, and it's real. It's real. It's not just take these drugs, but it's also go to this overpriced therapy session. Well, that too, yeah. What do you think about yourself? Just say it's nonsense. It's all nonsense, you know? I will say this too, right? I'm not even the biggest gym bro myself. I'm trying to get more about that, but I don't know that many people who work out on a regular basis. Forget all the even more complicated stuff. Like, obviously there's an existential side to this too, and I absolutely think that's part of the cause of depression. But how many people who work out daily do you know that are legitimately depressed? Maybe it happens. Like I said, it's not the only thing, because there's many existential levels to it. But genuinely, I would venture to say the majority of people who are depressed, if they just worked out and got sunlight, they probably wouldn't be depressed. Like most of them. Maybe there's still a problem in the soul that needs to be fixed, I'm sure. But I guarantee you for a lot of people that would fix it. Because yes, there is a hormonal imbalance, 100%. But the things that are causing that hormonal imbalance, again, it's the environment. It's the environment you live in. It's the life you are living, right? If they just got the two things that really like raise your endorphins, sunlight and exercise. Genuinely, so if anyone out there is struggling with depression, let me say, Before you go to the doctor, the therapist, try those two things, right? Get a couple hours of sunlight every day. Because let's be honest, a lot of us don't, right? It is real. The Zoomer lifestyle where, you know, when you get busy, or not when you get busy, just when you get lazy, all the food is on Uber Eats, right? You don't go outside. You just stay inside, play video games, watch YouTube all day. It's real. I've had periods in my life where I legitimately lived life like that. I will acknowledge that. Guess how I felt? Like crap, right? So that's number one. That's an endorphin thing. Sunlight's very good for you. Human beings are supposed to see sunlight. And then number two, obviously, the exercise part, right? Exercise does a lot to make you feel better about yourself. How many gym bros do you know that are depressed? Genuinely, how many? Like I said, I'm sure it exists because, like I said, there's an existential side to this too. It's not just physical. But I genuinely believe if the vast majority of people just change the physical side without even touching the existential side yet, they could probably fix their depression. They probably could. I'm serious about that. You know, I'm serious. And before you call that unscientific, no, it's actually very scientific, because if you have a hormonal imbalance in your brain because your life is miserable, I'm recommending you two of the easiest ways to fix your brain, fix the chemicals in your brain, right? It's not it's the most scientific thing ever. You raise your endorphins, you raise your positive hormones, you work out, you will feel better about yourself. I guarantee you will. You know, I guarantee you. Forbes Lister Bus says life coach Vince. Yeah, no, real. Maybe I'm gonna make that my thing. If you are feeling sad, hey, there's two simple things, right? I'll say get 2 hours of sunlight a day. You need to do your work outside, right? 2 hours of sunlight, hour of gym a day. I'm serious. I think you guys would agree. How many people do you think would just, their depression would end like that if they just started doing two things? It's two simple things, right? And honestly, because I have been there, I never really describe myself as depressed, but I guess maybe if I went to a doctor's office and said, this is how I feel, they'd probably be like, Vince, you need SSRIs, right? But no, it wasn't about that at all. It's just, I felt miserable because I was living a miserable life. It's true, right? The periods of my life, and like I said, we've all been there if we're young, where I just stayed inside all week, for a whole week, I never went outside, right? Uber Eats the whole week, you know, video games, all that stuff. I felt miserable. And the weeks where I did the opposite, I feel fine. And I virtually guarantee you the majority of people who say they have depression is real. But anyways, all right, that wraps up our main portion of the show. We will go on to Super Chats for about 20 or so minutes here. And then I'm honestly going to get to bed because it's like I said, I'm exhausted right now. You guys can probably tell I'm very tired. Look at me. So I want to get to bed, and then we can do a much more organized show tomorrow. But I didn't want to not stream for 4 days straight. All right, Real Text and Politics for $5 says, just wish it wasn't 100 degrees with 100% humidity outside Houston every day in the summer. Hey, I know how you feel, man. See, I'm in Florida, right? But people probably assume it's worse on the coast. I'm inland. And where I am, it's literally swampland. And the air just sits there. That's the thing. When you're on the ocean in Florida, you get breeze, you know, the air circulates, the air moves. I swear the air here just sits there. Is physically stuck. It's the worst during the summer. And so I will say that too. And you know, during the summer I probably get less sunlight as well, but you know, okay, forget the sunlight. Just go to the gym, right? You can probably figure it out. You can make it work, right? And there's probably something too about just being outside. I mean, even if you go outside in the evening, I mean, it's still better than not going outside. So that's what I'll say about it. Thank you for the $5. So yeah, next 20 or so minutes, questions, comments. We're open to Q&A. Feel free to send it in via the Super Chats. And your Super Chats are the best way, obviously, to support the show. But Andrew M. says, also get social and have a strong network of friends. For men out there, get in touch with some masculine friends. That is also true. But you definitely got to find good friends. Because there are friends out there who will make you more depressed. And so you got to watch out for that, right? Companionship is good, but if the people around you are miserable, they will also make you miserable, you know? I know that from experience as well. It's true. It's true. I remember one of my first ever girlfriends. This was even like back in middle school or whatever. But my first ever girlfriend, just mental problems, right? She was depressed all the time, emo, blah, blah, blah. And it made me, it probably made me depressed. Like, I remember it was bad. And then I left and was like, oh, wow. People are, it's actually not so miserable. It's true. The people around you, if they are miserable, that's what you got to watch out for. You're better off being alone than around other depressed people, right? Because they'll bring you down with them. But it is true, yes. Definitely having good friends it goes a long way. Goes a whole long way. And I would say as a man, having competitive friends as well, right? Men that want you to become better or encourage you to become better, right? It is very true. It is very true. Dirty Mike says, I was a heroin addict with an 8th grade education before I got my engineering master's. Being useful, sought after my skills, and good at my job is very fulfilling and keeps me clean. Yeah, exactly. See, that's the number one cause of depression. We don't have purpose. Besides the fact that we live like stupid lives. But also on a bigger picture, why do we live stupid lives, right? Because do you have time to sit inside and do nothing for 8 hours a day and just Uber Eats? If you are working a job, you have a serious career, you're doing something important, you're changing the world? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like I said, that's why the people in the Middle East who are getting bombed constantly, every day that they're not getting bombed, they get up there, they're still working, right? They're still working. Life sucks. They have no hope in life either. They have no hope of ever living a decent middle class life. They know it's not going to happen. But just their very fight for daily survival, just putting actual food on the plate, it keeps them going, right? If you have a struggle or a purpose in life, that's really all you need. But most people don't have it. Most men don't have it. And I understand them fully because I've been there before. Right? And that's part of the reason why I started streaming every single night. You think I like it? Most of the time, yeah, most of the time. But nights like tonight, I've not enjoyed tonight's stream at all. Freaking, I'm exhausted. It's all over the place. Didn't really even like it personally myself. But I'm better off if I didn't do it, right? Because I'm working. It's my job. It's what I have to do, right? And that schedule, that regimen, stops me from being lazy. It's real. It's very real, right? So, anyways. Again, guys, questions or comments you want to send in via these super chats to support the show. It is greatly appreciated. But let's take a look here. What happened to Javier? I'm in Oklahoma, too. I was missing electricity for a few days because of the windstorms. That sucks, dude. I hope you're okay. I hope you didn't freaking totally melt. That sounds horrible. We have AC and power again. Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. You should have. Did you stay in your house the whole time, or did you stay with someone else? Dude, summer. I don't know how it is in Oklahoma, but imagine summertime here, no AC. Couldn't do it. I'd probably just walk to the school library and just live in there. Hey, can you leave, man? You've been here like 48 hours. What do you want me to do? Like a freaking hobbit, looking like a total freak. Dumb, toxic friends that take advantage of you and are bad influences. So true. Very real. Vince flexing on us with his middle school goth girlfriend. No, I actually had one of those. Would not recommend it. Would not recommend it. Okay. I like looking back. I don't know why I even went out with her. To be totally honest with you, the real chief reason I did it is because I wanted to be the first of my friends who said they had a girlfriend, and so I just did it. It was stupid. It was dumb. I can't recommend the goth girlfriend thing. Okay, you really can't. I mean, if it's just their aesthetic and you like it, it's their aesthetic. I don't even like it because that left a bad taste in my mouth. But you don't need to go out with a girl who's like depressed and only wants to be sad all the time. Okay, find a happy woman, a woman who makes you more happy, right? Instead of just being like, because realistically, obviously, when a girl has problems, it's your job as a boyfriend to console her or whatever. But you really don't want the type of woman who's constantly like all day you just have to fix her problems for her, in the sense, and it's not even real problems, just in the sense of like she's just sad, she just can't stop freaking cutting herself or whatever that is, right? Like obviously she needs help, but you shouldn't be the one who has to date that, right? It's just, you know what I'm saying? So that was a time. That was a time to say the least. My My middle school goth girlfriend. But Real Texan Politics for $5 says, some big news. Malaria has been found in the United States for the first time in 20 years. Well, of course it has, Real Texan Politics. Of course. You know, because why not? Why wouldn't it be found? That's horrible. And I'm in mosquito central, so that's not good to hear. That's not good to hear. Oh jeez. Oh jeez. Realistically, it's probably God punishing our civilization for being wicked. It's like the plagues of America. That's what's happening to us. Like, seriously. Thank you for the $5 though. That's not, you hate to hear it. You hate to hear it, right? But getting back to what I was saying, right? I mean, it really depends on where you are in life. But for me, right, I now live a life, and I project in the next few years for this to even continue more, where I'm busy a lot, right? Take on stress, you know? I don't regret that. It's like I said, it's part of being a man, it's part of life. But if I'm going to do that, I don't want to come back to a girlfriend where, you know, obviously, like I said, something happens, then I'm there for her. But you don't want to be with a girl who, you know, you come home and then you got to like deal, like, she should just be there to really like make you happy, right? She should be your joy in life, not, you know, you spend all day fixing problems and doing all this and being stressed out, and then you come home and then you just got to deal with more of it, right? Should be the opposite of that. She should be your relief, you know? She should be just, she makes you happy, right? So that's what I want in a girl, right? I don't want a girl with a million mental problems that I have to constantly be like, you know, right? It is very real. $1 for $5 says, my hobbies are flying planes, playing guitar, playing basketball, and working out. I'm going to Liberty after I get my private pilot's license. Well, thank you for the $5. Flying planes, that's based. But that's another thing I forgot to leave out. I feel like, as a man, another thing that raises your testosterone and just your endorphins is that sense of exploration, right? The explorer, the pioneer. I know when I go and just drive, actually, I don't do it as much anymore. I really couldn't tell you why. But back then, I used to just, to clear my head, I'd just go on a drive. If I was angry, I would just speed, you know, just have fun. And it took the edge off. It really did. Or you just go drive around and explore. And I think you being a pilot's even more than that, right? Because we're explorers as men. You know, we go explore, we go do things, we go move, we move about, right? We move about. I definitely think it helps. So thank you for the $5, and that's obviously great to hear. And eating meat, that is another thing. Yeah, the hormones you put in your body. It's very real. It's very real. My girl makes me a better person, and we take care of each other, just in different ways. Well, the different ways thing is very important. That's very good. Good for you. Good for you. That's the way it should be. The way it should be. Pissbrain Inc. 115. That's a fantastic name. Says, bro, my uncle comes home after work exhausted, and his girlfriend tells him to stay with the kids for the rest of the day, and she doesn't even have a job. Yeah, that's, yeah, can't do that. Okay, can't do that. It's horrible. So many women like that too, you know. And notice that he's still the breadwinner, right? So many women out, because I understand there's some men who are just not real men, and I get that. But there's so many women out there who they expect for their man to be a man. It's just they don't want to be a woman, right? You see it on Fresh and Fit all the time. And, you know, my man has to make like $1 million a month and be 7 feet tall and, you know, drive a freaking, you know, Lamborghini, all this stuff. But he better not dare ask me to make a sandwich for him, even though he slaves away for like 20 hours, you know. All the time, right? All the time. And the worst part, partially it's our fault because so many of us men just sit there and accept it. We just sit there and accept it, right? How many people do you know like that? Where their girlfriend, their wife, you know, they just get bossed around by them and they just sit there and take it. Oh, well, I love her. Oh, well. It's bad. It's backwards. It's ridiculous, you know? I'm lucky I realized that at a young age, because now I can't accidentally enter a marriage where I'm not thinking about that stuff, because it's real, right? Now, I will say where I do resonate with a lot of women, especially a lot of conservative women, because I see this happen a lot to them too, is where, you know, I see this happen mainly in the conservative relationships, and this is the problem: is the man's not a man. So I'm not saying it's always the woman's fault, because I see a lot of cases where the guy just lives the Zoomer guy lifestyle, right? He just plays video games. He doesn't work. He doesn't make any money. He doesn't do anything. He does nothing. But he expects his woman to be a wifey for him. You know, he expects his woman to cook, clean, be very submissive, all this stuff. But she's not the type of man worthy of submission. So I will say that happens too. That happens too, right? And I would say that happens more in our world, because we have this expectation of, you know, this is what we want. I get that. I agree with it. But there's a lot of men out there who just, you know, they complain on the internet too. They're like, why can't women cook for me and be submissive and take care of all this stuff? And it's like, you just sit around and play video games, right? An actual guy from your 1950s cliche would come and beat the crap. He would punch you in the face for being a nerd, right? But then on the flip side, they're like, why are you going woman all screwed up? So it's definitely on both sides. I'm not exonerating the men either. You know, but I definitely do see it a lot. And then you have the problem on the other side, though, where the women still want their men to be men. You will rarely find, even with how much feminism has screwed up women, there's like the 5% of crazy bisexual women who want femboys and all that stuff. But the vast majority of women out there still want their man to be a man, even the liberal ones, right? They still go for the guy who's tall, attractive, you know, has just the general characteristics that are found to be masculine, right? That's confident, asserts himself, all that stuff. So most women out there, even the feminist women, still want their men to be men. It's just that they don't want to be women, right? Yes, my man should provide for me and slave away and do everything, but he better, if he ever asks me to make him a sandwich, fire out of their eyes. How dare he do that? That's sexist. See the problem? See the problem? JD for $2 says, what's the deal with Jenna Ellis's love for DeSantis? I have no idea. You'd have to ask her. You'd have to ask her. I mean, I have no problems with Jenna Ellis. I was on her show. I mean, we're cool. We have disagreed in the past. There's nothing personal there, though. But yeah, obviously I disagree with that. I disagree with that 100%. Thank you for the $2, JD. Happy wife, happy life, Vince. And see, that is, so listen, the happy wife, happy life thing, the statement actually is true. It's just very misunderstood by society, right? Happy wife, happy life means like, yes, she's happy because you provide for her and you're a good man and all that stuff. But very often, what that's misconstrued to mean in society is like, happy wife, happy life means the wife should be the head of the household. They shouldn't. In an ideal world, right? That's not the way I believe things should be. And the woman should just basically be very controlling and frankly borderline mentally abusive, and you know, just boss the guy around and happy wife, happy life. That's not what it means. That's not what it means, right? That's not what it's supposed to mean at all. So Dollar for Dollar says LSU is up 10-2. Is that real? Are you messing with me? Is it so Jover? Is it indeed Jover? Oh no, it's so Jover. It's so Jover. All right, Dollar for Dollar. You win this round. We'll see you next year, my guy. All right, we got a Streamlabs donation here. Let's check it out. Let me see. Here we go. Wait.
Quintil donated $5. Hi Vince, do you have any tips for new conservatives? A lot of my colleagues, if not all, are progressive. Not going to share new position with folks lol, especially being black. But how should I go about navigating the world with my principles?
Thank you for the $5, Quintel. I mean, yeah, I mean, I would say take it slowly, right? So start planting the seeds of the things you believe, more so than just straight up going out, I'm conservative, Republican, all that stuff. I think the best way over time to assert your principles is to gradually just say maybe common sense things that a lot of people agree with, right? You know, just come along and occasionally say things like, well, yeah, there is a fatherlessness problem. You know, a lot of this culture that's promoted in, you know, the hip hop and all that stuff is just, it's bad for the kids. It's bad for the youth, right? You know what I mean? And a lot of youth don't really understand what comes with the lifestyle and all that stuff. And we need more fathers and we need more men and all that stuff. I think small scale takes like that when it's appropriate, obviously, are kind of the ways to maybe incorporate it in, right? I obviously I'm not going to discourage. I'm not going to encourage. I would never encourage anyone to just hide their beliefs, right? Because I can't do that. But I do understand there's something to be said about, being slow with it, being, planting the seeds, not burning every bridge, not getting fired from your job, So that's what I would say is don't shy away from your beliefs, don't compromise them, but maybe introduce them in a gradual way. And maybe eventually people will figure out that you're conservative or whatever, but it's an easier, more simple way to do it, in my opinion. So thank you for the $5, Quintel. I appreciate that very much. God bless you. And best of luck. Glad to have you on our side, obviously. And that's probably what I'd say about it. Conservative guys are better looking and more attractive than liberal men. This is true. And to the trust the science crowd, this is something that's actually been studied and proven by studies. And it is true. And women do find conservative guys more attractive. It's funny, I got to react to it on the show sometime. I saw this video of this girl who says, I'm a liberal feminist, but I still want my man to be a man. And the problem is the only actual men I can find are conservative. It's like, why do you think that is, genius? I'm a liberal feminist. Yeah, well, you believe in the very thing that is the reason we don't have men. Okay? Like, well, how? But this actually highlights the point, right? She wants a man to be a man, but she doesn't want to be a woman, right? She wants a man to do his duty as a woman, but she doesn't, as a man, I should say, but she doesn't want to do her duty as a woman, right? She probably wants him to be big, strong, tough, rich, masculine, dutiful, all of those things. But, please don't ask me to be submissive to you, even though you want. This is a problem, right? It's a problem. Like I said, neither gender is exonerated from it, because I know a lot of conservative guys out there too who are total losers. They don't do anything, right? They say they want a stay-at-home wife. They don't even have a job. They don't make money. They don't do anything. They just sit on their couch, play video games, live off their parents, and live the NPC life that we criticize, and wonder why they can't find their trad wife. It's definitely both ways. But all right, guys, last call here for super chats. I'm going to end the stream here at 9:20. But any last call and any last questions, comments, thoughts you want to send in, feel free to do so. Appreciate the support as always. But Kara St. Joseph says the main takeaway is that erroneous, perverted beliefs are not sustainable. So true. So true. I'm doing a PhD at Liberty, working on my dissertation now. Vince Dao, if you want a good girl, get a Filipina. They are the best. Thank you for the advice, David. I will carefully consider this advice. I don't know why you're recommending them specifically to me, though. What's going on here? Are you trying to advertise your race to me? Is that what's happening? So it is real. It is very real. Let's take a look here. Men are still men down south, except some of Nashville and 70% of men in Atlanta. Yeah, no, real. I agree with that. I believe that. But even then, I will say I don't know, because I go to school in the South, and there's still a lot of dudes who just play video games and don't do anything and are lazy, and that's been me. That's been me for a lot of my life too. And I'm still not perfect about doing stuff, right? But I definitely think I've gotten better about it, right? I definitely think I've gotten better about it. And I'm still on a journey to become a better man, but it's a process. Dollar for $5. Thank you very much. Says, I'm trying to be a private pilot for conservative politicians. This will be my plan to become rich and build a network. What's your plan after college? Well, my plan after college is to, do the media thing, make it big. I'm thinking, I met this guy when I was at the event in Dallas the other night. I'm not going to disclose what he does for a living, okay? Because I don't want to out my little angle here, but I met this guy who he became a millionaire off of doing It's nothing like wrong or illegal or anything bad, but like I said, I feel like I want to keep the cards close to my chest in terms of what it is. I'll tell the members sometime, okay? It's private knowledge. But he talks about this like part-time business he does having to do with a certain management of, like I said, it's nothing bad. It's just I'm just kind of keeping my cards close to my chest there. But I might take that up. I might take that up as a part-time job. Gain some assets. Okay, it has to do with assets. That's what I'll say. And so I might do that. Try to kind of do 2 incomes at once. But yeah, on the media front, move to either Tampa or Miami unless I get picked up with a network. But if I stay independent, I'd probably go to Tampa or Miami and get a place, maybe get a studio, and just build the media empire. That's the plan on this front. And on the other front, like I said, might get involved in that side business. But yeah, thank you for the $5. All right, well, if we got no more super chats tonight, I will wrap it up for tonight. I gotta go get some sleep. So insanely jet lagged, it is horrible. Oh wait, one more. Supreme Leader Admiral Alexander Kolchak says, "What do you think of Patriot Front? Are they feds?" So I don't think that every single one of them is a fed. Obviously, that'd be ridiculous. There obviously are real people who are a part of it and support it. But I do think they are definitely very heavily infiltrated by feds. I think that's a reasonable assumption. And I really don't think their tactics are necessarily that effective. And I know some people might say, Vince, what are you doing, man? What are you? Okay, fine, whatever. I mean, like, yeah, I've spoken and been engaged in protests before too. So I don't know what your point is. I don't know what you're trying to say. My whole thing on their tactics and their methods is, they dress like stormtroopers. I don't know, whatever. They dress like, they look like LARPers. They go around and do that. And, and really, what does that accomplish? Maybe there are other things they do that, hey, whatever. But them going around marching in these stupid masks, these silly outfits, they look ridiculous. And the main thing is the freaking whatever they have on their head. They wear diapers on their head. I don't think that's effective. And I think there's a reason why people look at that and assume that they're feds. I don't think that's unreasonable. Maybe they misunderstand it slightly, but people get so mad, like, why are you accusing Patriot Front of being feds? They bring it on themselves. They bring it on themselves with the tactics and the things that they wear and the way they portray themselves. In my opinion, that's my opinion, right? Do I think they're all feds? No. Do I think they're certainly infiltrated? Guaranteed. But regardless, either way, if you don't want to be called feds, don't act like feds. Right? Don't dress like feds would, right? Don't literally dress like FBI agents or with stupid face diapers, and then wonder why you're not taken seriously. So that's my take on Patriot Front. I don't think they're necessarily all feds. I think they're infiltrated for sure. Maybe they're not, but in the case that they're not, still I would say, well, why do they carry themselves like that? It's partly I'm not saying, I understand. I understand that the media will call anyone anything, but to a degree, you also have to be responsible in terms of your methods and your actions and the way you present yourself. And genuinely, I know they have these defenders who always say, no, they're doing so much. You're just the one doing nothing. That's why you're calling them feds. I don't know everything they do, but my question genuinely, open question, what are they achieving by walking around DC looking stupid and just, being called white supremacists and all that? I get it. The media is going to be the media. But, like, whose mind are they changing? What are they convincing by walking around dressed as stormtroopers, looking ridiculous? Both the left and the right looks at them like clowns in those outfits. Like, who are they influencing? What are you convincing? What are you doing? How are you actually advancing any message? I don't think they are, right? I know they have their defenders, but I don't think they are. I think their optics are bad. They don't present themselves which is why, right, they get accused so often by other conservatives of being feds. It is what it is. Right? And to people who claim to defend them by saying, no, they're so effective, you just don't get it. What does Patriot Front believe? What do they do? What do they advocate for? No, I don't know. Nobody knows because, again, for as effective as they're actually not effective. You get that? They're not effective. Because we all know them just as the LARPers who dress up in costumes and march around DC, right? I don't know what they stand for. I don't know what they say. They certainly don't put out content explaining it. I don't. All we know them as is the silly people in costumes who make the right look bad, right? So like I said, I don't think the whole thing is a federal op. I just think it's infiltrated. But regardless, either way, I don't think they carry themselves well. I don't think they're an effective group. And that's what I'll say about them, you know? So, Vince, where did you go to school? Well, I currently go to the University of Florida, who is currently getting destroyed in the College World Series. It's so Jover. It's so Jover. Right? It's literally so over. LSU just constantly getting the better of us, okay? It's all the time. All right, but anyways, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I will wrap up the show tonight. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Be sure to get us to 100 likes before you go. And until next time, Alpha Moves only. Everyone have a very good night. Be sure to join us tomorrow night, same time, same place, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And hopefully I'll be more alive for that show. But yeah, thank you for everyone who tuned in. See you guys later. Alpha Moves only. God bless and peace.